This is Scott from Lawrence Hypnotherapy, and thank you again for watching the channel. Thank you again for basically just like being a part of the journey. So if you're wanting to grow your business, if you're in hypnotherapy, you're in coaching, you're in NLP, and you basically just want to get out there and you want to be able to get paid for helping people, especially in today's day and age where people need you the most. Sometimes you need a hand. Sometimes it's just like nice to hear another person's perspective. So I've got a fantastic guest today, Irene Emily, who's a branding and web page specialist. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Scott. Thank you so much for the amazing introduction.
No worries. So what got you into branding and web pages?
Yeah, so interesting question. I started as a designer. And I started in an agency setting. The term branding in an agency setting actually just means like the logo and what the graphics around that. But when I actually started my business, I realized that branding is actually so much more than that. It's, you know, the messaging and how you communicate what you do to your clients in an effective way. So what actually got me into branding and website building into where I am now was actually the learning process and the journey that I went through from being just a designer to actually being branding, communications, websites, and actually fleshing out what a brand really is. Is that a really complicated way to answer that question?
Well, that's perfect. Because, you know, like when you ask people these days, like, what's your backgrounds? And it used to be like, oh, it's in like web page design. And like now it's like you ask somebody over a Zoom call, what's your background? You're like, oh, it's Egypt or it's a green screen thing. But yeah, like what's perhaps like what's a really great summary of like what is a brand or like what is branding? Because like people hear the word and they're like, I've got to go do branding. And then sometimes like I swear it just creates like fight or flight in their head because like they've studied hypnotherapy or coaching or something and they're about to go and do some branding and they're going, what on earth is that?
That's it. Yeah, I agree, Scott. It's become a little bit of a buzzword, a bit of a keyword over the past few years because of the whole solopreneur starting my own business trend that's been happening over the past 2 or 3 years. There's a lot of talk around what do I need to do as a new business owner, and the term branding has been thrown in there to sell a lot of small business courses and all that kind of thing. So, it's really not that hard. And as hypnotherapists, you will understand it very well because you're into psychology, right? So branding literally is what people think about you, right? Branding is the communications that your business puts out there. So branding is like, if someone hasn't spoken to you yet, Scott, or they don't know anything about your business and they happen to come across your site or come across one of your landing pages, for example, what impression are they getting from that page? What impression are they getting from that video that they just watched from you? You know, because that's going to determine the perception that they have of you. Do I like them? Do I trust them? Am I interested? Should I follow? Am I interested enough to follow them? You know, your branding is your messaging and delivering a certain idea in a particular kind of way in order to lead to the click, the sale, the lead, right?
Exactly. Because like when I graduated, I think it's 11 years full time I've been doing hypnotherapy, and 2 years before that I was studying it. And the Academy of Hypnotic Science in Melbourne, it was a brilliant academy for teaching hypnotherapy. Back at the time, they didn't have any business training at all. Now they do, but it's kind of like that when I was sort of like led into the world, I had a head full of psychology and I was just sort of like tired and exhausted. And I think I was just like couch locked for 3 months.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out like, you know, like what do I do? Like, how do I kind of like get the customers? And then thinking about like all the other hats, like, you know, that I'd never built a web page. I've never had to kind of like answer the phone, never had to book someone in. I hadn't sort of considered putting a program together. I'd basically learned how to do 1 hour of hypnotherapy. And so like the first time I'd answered the phone, like somebody called and I just went, oh, do you have questions? And like, well, yeah, then they just ask me questions. And then because I've just studied for 2 years of hypnotherapy, I basically unleashed on them 2 years of just like an out breath that I've been holding in of like, let me tell you about like, you know, Milton Erickson, Sigmund Freud, hypnotherapy, the rest, the conscious, the subconscious, you know, the chair that you'll be sitting in, like just kind of the science of all those things. And then they just went like, oh, wow, like you've just given me so much value. I need to go away and think. And that person never called me back.
Yeah. Yeah.
so it was kind of interesting, like, that all I knew was like, the psychology stuff of the hypnotherapy. And I'm like, what are my next steps? Like, what do I do from here to actually go and build a client base?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that kind of like a familiar, I suppose, like scenario that of people that work with you that, like, they come to you going, I've got my skill. What next?
100% right. So over the 10 years that I've been doing this, I've served 150 to 200 brands, right?
Oh, wow.
And during that, like, you don't go through that kind of experience without noticing some patterns and ongoing, like, repeatable kind of problems, right? So, I mean, about half of them was small to medium businesses. So usually the pattern is kind of like, they get out and they're like I said before, they're really good at their crafts, but they haven't really got much business acumen. So like you just did before, like you said, you got on the phone and you kind of did your thing with your expertise. And then you're like, oh, they didn't call me back. So I'll bet after that call, you got really curious about, how do I get better at a call like that? Right.
Yeah.
So it's the curiosity that goes in, and the self-awareness of that call didn't go as well as I thought it could, or how do I induce a follow-up, for example. It's the curiosity that really has a business owner growing into looking up how to properly do sales calls, or how to properly do the lead gen. What do I need to do to get leads into my business, and all the other stuff in between, the accounts, the admin, email management. Do I get a VA? Like, there's all these other questions that come in. So through that journey, what's naturally been very complementary to my business in the branding stuff, because I'm asking very deep questions. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are you helping people with? What are their problems? Usually I'm actually coaching with the business owner to get to a certain point where they feel like, hell yeah, this is me. This is what I represent. This is how I can help people. And there's usually some kind of elevation during that process, so that they can step out and they can they can launch this website that they feel really aligned with, right?
And this could be the first time someone's been asked these questions. Like something like, who do you help and what do you help them with? They're like, hypnotherapy. You're like, no. Who do you help and what do you help them with? You don't help people with hypnotherapy. It's like that they're not Googling, why I don't have enough hypnotherapy in my life.
Correct.
Or like someone's not like, sad and crying. Like, what's wrong? Oh, I just don't have a hypnotherapist in my life.
Yeah. If only.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's so confronting sometimes of like, who do you help and what do you help them with? And like, oh, everything.
Yeah.
And like, no, you can't. Especially like when you're starting up, you can't do that. You can't be everything to everybody. And almost like one of the better things they could do, even if they get it wrong, just pick one.
Yeah.
Like it probably sounds lazy, but it's the opposite. It's a place to start. If they could pick a problem, like when you're asking them these questions, if they could come up with an answer, it doesn't necessarily probably have to be the perfect answer of all time. Like they can always perhaps, in 6 months, like pick another one.
Absolutely. And, it's not, doesn't have to be written in stone. You try it, right? You try it out. You try it on for 3 months. If it doesn't work, you change. And to be honest, business changes all the time. So allow the change to happen, right? So, at the moment, like I'm adding an extra, like the coaching arm to my business. The business is going to be evolving. My branding and my messaging is going to be evolving, right? Evolving is part of life, and it's part of business life as well. So like whatever answer is right for you at the time in that moment is totally okay to run with.
Absolutely. Just pick one. Because we do find, I suppose, that you're not going to succeed or fail based on like at first picking the right niche anywhere near as much as how much action you take on just like pursuing a niche.
That's right.
And you might pick a horrible one. It might be that you're trying to sell like, scissors to the homeless for some reason, or, skateboards to the elderly. You're like, all right, that's a horrible, horrible niche, but you're almost better off doing that than doing nothing.
That's right.
Because then at least you'll discover what's wrong with it.
Correct. You discover what's wrong with it. Then you'll know, you'll assuming everyone here is growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
you'll be able to look back on that and say, okay, that didn't work because of X, Y, Z. And it's not necessarily just about the messaging. You'll learn about other things in the business that didn't quite work because of what reasons that were for. So long as you have the quality and the skill to reflect back on yourself and be really humble about, being honest with yourself, what didn't work, what should I do next time? Not to focus on what didn't work, but with the intention of, how can I make that better? How can I avoid that in the future? If I did this, I wonder what the possibility would be or the outcome would be,
What they're going to gain along the way is basically an understanding of how to put a niche together to build a client base. So like, no matter what they pick, what they're going to be confronted with is this information, a blueprint of how to do it, which basically it speeds them up the next time, because they do, in a way, there's this like standoff of like, big picture versus small steps of like, give me the big picture because I don't understand how it all fits together. You're like, okay, here's the big picture. Yeah, but now I'm overwhelmed. Just give me small steps. And you're like, okay, well, here's your first step. Oh, but I don't know how that fits together with the big picture. It's like, well, we just covered that.
Yes.
And so sometimes it can like, be this bouncing back and forth.
Yes.
And as uncomfortable as it might be, it's like, all right, this is going to be a little bit different, but you're going to be asked some questions. You're going to be given some processes to follow. Just strap in, hang on for the ride, and things are going to be really amazing if you basically trust in the process and allow yourself to be that student. It's like, yes, you've graduated the hypnotherapy, the coaching, the accounting, the law school, whatever it is that you've done. Now it's branding time. You're going to be a beginner again, but it's absolutely worth doing it.
100%. And the reason why the website service is in there is because that you can communicate. It's like a blank canvas. You can literally communicate anything in any type of way on a blank website. So like, and it's, I was talking about the impression building before. So like, think about it, when someone goes to a website, it's the certain kind of information or the certain kind of content that I'm usually extracting from them, where did you do your training? Has it won any awards? Have you won any awards? Have you been nominated for anything? Have you been featured in any articles? Have you treated any clients of what kind of like an A demographic, right? Have like for you yourself, Scott, like you've got these awesome achievements of interviewing celebrities. That's great for brand building, right? So it's about having someone outside of you ask the right questions, and all of those bits of content that I've now got, putting them in the right order so that it builds the impression that you want them to have of you. So if you were going to put, for example, your celebrity branding and your features at the top of your website, and then having your hypnotherapy at the bottom, it builds a certain type of perception of you. Yep. If you're going to put your celebrity branding kind of in the middle or at the bottom, and then at the top you'd have maybe your values, that's a different type of impression. Even though it's the same person and the same content, the order at which the content is created, that's the magic stuff, right? That's what I love about what I do.
The order is so important. I suppose it's like almost like in dating versus like if someone, they just meet you and they say, will you marry me?
Yes. 100%.
Like that song, like, I just met you, this is crazy. It's like, yeah, this is crazy because I've just met you. So like the order would be, date them for a little bit, get to know them, and then ask them to marry you. And the same, I suppose, would go for like the web page. What order are you going to put things in? Like, well, one that makes sense for like what the outcome is that you would like to achieve at the other end. So it's like, do you want to see 20 clients a week? Do you want to speak on stage? Do you want to sell books? Do you want to do group coaching? Do you want to like, what is it at the other end that you would like to actually achieve? And then the thought process from the beginning, that blank slate you were talking about of like the web page, it's like an electronic piece of paper. That's theirs to play with to create that outcome.
Yes.
But obviously guidance is needed, because people go like, I love the idea of doing it in the right order. What's the right order?
That's right. Right. That's right. So, and you start with, like you said, what do I want to be doing? What's the vision or goal of what I want to be doing? And then we kind of go into, well, how do people need to see you in order for you to achieve that on the perception level? And there's like this three-step process that I take people through, and I'll share that really quickly with you and you guys now, because I think it's going to be helpful for you. So I call it the DNA system, right? DNA system, because it's part of branding. The first step is to define, right? So you want to define who you are. So exactly what we said, define who you are, define who your client is, their problems, what they want, like really get in their nitty gritty. Go and ask a couple of people. If I know it's a bit of a sensitive thing about with your industry, but see if you can kind of do little short 15-minute interviews and just really get in their minds and use their language.
Like the niche insider.
Yeah.
So take them out on a coffee date, and not date, but like take them out for water, tea, whatever it is.
That's it. Yeah.
And ask them what's in their minds.
Yeah. Make sure you frame it a little bit. You might want to give them, I'd be happy to help you with something. You might need to do some kind of little creative exchange-ish for that time. And part of that define stage is also, doing the research and pulling all these things out of you, like we're always taught to be so humble in our winnings, I had this one client this week, bless her. She's like, oh yeah, we were just featured in this thing, and I just created this piece for this famous football player. It was like 5 years ago though, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, she was discounting it, but I had to ask her twice. I said, are you sure there's nothing you can think of, right? So make sure that you're not discounting any of your successes in your career, because if you don't own that, your clients won't see it either, and that builds your reputation and the trust that they have with you. So, define all of those things and those things that are great about your service.
100%. Like, I'm pretty sure that like Neil Armstrong doesn't go, that was ages ago.
Right.
Like, it's like there's an expiry. That was 5 years ago. Like... Can you get over it?
Right. Oh,
just the moon. That's all. Lately? Yeah. What have you done lately?
They won't ask you that. Pottery? They won't ask you that. Do you know what I mean? They won't ask you. So, 100%. Like, what are your achievements? Have you been featured in something? That part of that stage is also gathering testimonials, going out. That's part of the research as well.
Yeah. Like, it was like voted world's #1 in something, but don't worry about that. That was last year.
Yes, that's right.
It's like, use that.
That's it.
Put it out there so that people can, because like when people are making a decision, should they use you or not? It's almost, we could almost like say it's respectful to like say that we're just like helping the communication along a little bit by saying, guess what, guys, like I've achieved something not everybody does.
That's it. And
might help you.
That's right.
Yeah, help you to make the decision as to who to book in. Correct.
And you know what, they're comparing your site to somebody else's. So everybody is being humble and no one's owning their successes. Right. This could be the point of difference. And I know that this industry is humble as well. So this could be the point of difference for yourself and for viewers watching this as well, as to owning the achievement. Have a good think, because you may have been covering it up with like, don't be boastful belief your entire life. So just have a look at it from a real factual point of view. You might think about things, the questions like, did I win anything? Even when you were in training, did you top your class in the college? Did the college, was it a multi-award winning college that you went to? Maybe the location of the college that you were trained at wasn't in like the hypnotherapist hub of a global hub or something like that, right? So it's all about owning that and framing it in the right way. So part of that define is that D of the DNA system is really, really powerful. So from there is N for navigate, right? So
once you know the navigate.
Yeah. So once you know where all what your pieces look like and what your brand map looks like and what bits of content that you have, you're going to also want to have a look at where the market is at the moment. So if you notice that a lot of hypnotherapists or a lot of people who can treat the same people that you do are using the same messaging, or, like financial services, right? All of their brands are blue. I guarantee it. All of their brands are blue, right? So if you're going to be, doing financial services, why not go with orange? Why not go with yellow? Or do you know what I mean? For example. So have the awareness of where the market is, and you'll be able to, yes.
Have you been to like, or joined anyone's program that's like anywhere between 2 to 5 grand, who has like maybe 500,000 to 1 million followers or more?
500,000 to 1 million? It's possible.
Yeah, like if there's anyone who's like an industry famous, it could be like, Cohen Ray or, or just any of those kinds of people that that they basically like, sell a program, basically how to scale businesses. What's kind of interesting is like on their main program, every one of them are using the same font for their main program.
Gotham. It's called
Well,
Gotham.
it's like if it's a 2-word program, it's just all caps. I saw like Brendan Bouchard had Experts Academy, and that was all caps, and then Cohen Ray had his Nail It and Scale It, and it was like all caps, and it was the same font. And then even Marie Folio like was using the same thing, and Jeff Walker and Frank Kern. But all those kind of like American gurus and a whole bunch of Australian ones, whenever like they're selling their program, like it's as you was like the Navigate thing, every one of them, like that there's this like one font that they use to sell their kind of maybe like 3.5K program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then even like some of like the smaller people that, just get started who then become bigger, they're using the same font too. I had a mate who she did like something like 1 million in her first year or two or something, doing a retreat, like where people could, she called it the ultimate 48-hour author, where people would go away for 2 days to her, just like a place that she's rented, like some like beautiful kind of like little mansiony area with a nice view. And her program had the same font too. So it's kind of interesting, like that when people are getting kind of like giving cheap lead magnets away or something, they change the fonts from there. But like whenever they sell like, the 3.5K one, it's always the same fonts.
Yeah. So that's a really good observation, Scott, especially if you're not a designer, right? Because I've noticed this as well. The font that you're talking about, it's really rounded and fat. It's called Gotham. It's called Gotham.
Oh, yes.
There's a standard one and there's a rounded version. And I've noticed this as well. And I'll tell you something about it, right? So it's a trend that you're noticing. So sometimes it's helpful to go along with the trends. Sometimes it's helpful to break them, and you got to know when to break them, right? Yep. So after a while, that trend will start to get a little bit tired, right?
Oh, yes.
So once everyone has saturated that trend, that when you start going in with something different, that's when all eyes are on you. But you got to do it in the right positioning type of way. So the thing that I'll say about when the good thing about following on with the trend is if all the big guys are doing it, they've established that they already have assumed trust from their audience, right? So all the little guys that are doing it as well, it's the assumed trust. So they're grabbing onto, right? And it's a subconscious thing. We don't think, oh yeah, Tony Robbins uses the same font, so I trust them like I trust Tony Robbins. It's a subconscious thing.
Yeah. They're writing the tailcoats of someone else who's doing it.
Yes.
And it might, so like it can work for a while, just like copying them exactly.
Well, I wouldn't condone copying in any sense. Copying like, that's kind of pretty blatant, and I would always encourage, like, this is why the first stage is so important, because you're uncovering what's unique about you. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to copy anyone. And if anything, I would probably call it modeling, because right, you're not really copying anyone, because when you model, it's not about it's about what are they doing? How can I apply it to what I do? Not necessarily I need to do exactly that in order to get their results. You're going to upgrade the thinking.
Nice.
Right.
I'm loving this framework. This is perfect.
Yeah, good. I'm glad, Scott. So the navigate stage is all about, now that we have all the different bits of content and all the different bits of knowledge about what makes the brand or the business unique, and let's call it sellable. It's about navigating and how do we strategically build the brand with what we know in the market in order to communicate the idea to the audience. So it's about really crafting that, and we were talking about that order before. It's about crafting intentionally what the order I have a specific formula that I base and that I start with, because I'm like, this is what makes people look really good. Like at the end of a website, I think, like, I did my website on this formula. I'm like, oh my God, I want to hire myself. I sound amazing.
Yeah.
Like I did another client and she was like, did I do all that? And she's like, I did that. Wow, I'm really cool. If you don't want to hire yourself by the end of the website, well, by the end of it, it's done. Like, I haven't done my job. Like, you should sound amazing.
Perfect. So we'll make sure as well, that might be a good time to say, like, that, click the link under the video, or if this is on Facebook that you're finding this, comment, because like this sounds like a really fantastic framework to have.
Absolutely. So any questions, or if you feel like you need to you know, if you feel like you need help, maybe cementing that messaging a little bit more, or you feel like you've been a little bit too humble with the achievements and you just need someone to ask you the right questions, you know, if you're on Facebook, comment me below and I'll get in touch. Otherwise, you can go ahead on my website, ireneemily.com, and you can see my offering there and get in touch there. So that's what I do, man.
I love it.
That's
Just knowing the order. So what did the D stand for again?
So the D is define.
Define. Navigate.
So we didn't get to A, which is attract.
Yeah.
Right. That's the execution. That's the execution of our brand strategy, our you know, our website. Let's put it out there and see the results that we get. You know, what particular Facebooks are working in Facebook groups do we share it to? What don't we? How are we positioning ourselves and on our Facebook profile? Are we using our business page and doing ads, or are we using our personal page and we doing organic lead search? You know?
Yeah.
So how are we?
Because what's kind of interesting, like it's like you build the web page, then you build the traffic, but the customers come from the other direction, like where they see the traffic source you have, and then they go to the web page.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, I loved how early on, like you were talking about, like, you know, getting out of the, whether it's the hypnotherapist or the coach or the NLP master or the yogurt master, whatever they want to call themselves, but like getting out of their head and then getting into the customer journey and thinking about like, well, how would a person want to buy from me? Because like people hate being sold to, but they love buying. They're addicted to buying things all the time, as long as they don't feel like someone's selling something to them.
That's right.
So when it comes to the traffic, so what would you say like are some of the mistakes that people make? Because I would say it's probably a lot to do with like that. They think like, you know, oh, everything's on the web page, so therefore like click there, you'll find it. What do people need to do with their traffic sources or the A for action? What do people like really need to make sure that they include to make sure that people will actually click and get to the web page?
Yeah, amazing question. So if you're ready to take the website thing really seriously and you're fully committed to your business, that's usually when you go into things like SEO or Facebook ads, right? Facebook ads do work and they can be very swift to work with. So if you have a little bit of a war chest financially behind you, definitely Facebook ads can get some really good results. You can link directly to the website. If the person who has built it for you, and if that is me, I would have done this, then your homepage is going to be building to an impression to actually lead to contacting you or lead to buying that thing, or it will be some kind of conversion in mind. What's the end goal? What do you want them to do after they go to that site? You can't just be like a random about you section and just like nothing at the end. So what's the CTA, right? So yeah, so getting traffic to that site, what we were saying before this call as well, build it and they will come. Doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, I think it used to be true a very, very long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, but everyone's building it. So
yeah, the first business ever. It's like, hey, this is new. Love it.
That's it. That's it.
Well, the first person who calls himself a guru, like, you know, have you heard of gurus? No, I haven't. Come and check it out. And now everyone's an expert, so we don't know who's an expert.
Yes.
So like the marketing and the branding really have to be done properly.
That's right. That's right. And of course, you need to be authentic in what you do. You know, if you've been training for a year, if you've been out of college for 1 year and you're still doing kind of like, you're still getting the ropes of it, don't put yourself out there as an expert. You know,
yeah.
Like be congruent with who you are as well. You know.
Yeah. So authentic, congruent, but don't hide, because some people might think that being authentic means to hide their achievements, which is almost like, I would say, like, you know, it's a misunderstanding of what being authentic is.
Yeah.
Like authenticity is like, it's honesty. It's almost, it's more authentic to actually show people like, look, I actually got this award. It's real. You can check it out yourself.
Yes. Yes. Don't mistake authentic for humble.
Yeah.
Humble is a really good quality to have. And I'll give you a bit of a trick. If this is a really good trick, a way that I go about going around that. You can be forthcoming about your achievements if you write it in third person. It's brilliant. It's brilliant because it takes away your personal ownership of feeling like you're bragging. So instead of me saying, oh, I've won an award in 2018 for something, and then I was, and then I met Nicolas Cage, blah, blah, blah. It's like, in your own head, you might be thinking, she's full of herself. But the way that you get out of that is if it's actually in written content, you say, Irene was awarded in 2016 in the something, the most honorable something. In 2011, when she met Nicolas Cage, he gave her this amazing advice. And then since then, she's been on this amazing mission to XYZ. It reads like a feature as opposed to you boasting, and you can keep your humbleness. And you know what? I give my clients that grace because I'm writing it. Because I can see their greatness, I'm like, let me write that for you. And they're like, oh, wow, that's why they're so surprised. Because they're like, I thought I was, I take myself as this person. I'm like, this is how I see you. Holy crap. This is what your clients need to see you as well.
It's so true. Sometimes it's like trying to give yourself a back massage.
Yes.
Or I like to kind of the wingman version, like with social proof. Anybody else could say something about you, and because it's from the outside perspective, it's like that. It's not just like that your clients tend to believe it more, but it's like that you tend to believe it more because you're like, oh, it's not coming from me, it's coming from another source.
Yeah. And that's very hard to do on your own. Trying to think about how to work around your block while being conscious of your block. It's like, but like I'm really happy that I can do that for people. You know what I mean? Because it attributes to their up level as well, because they read that about themselves and that they like it's an esteem boost, and it's because it's true. It's literally fact checked by their own brain. They're like, I did that. Wow, I am awesome. And then you get on your sales call with more confidence too, right?
Yeah, like people don't know how to see themselves, and that's like why they're almost always checking. It's like in a marriage or relationship, like when they keep asking, do you love me? Do you really love me? Because it's like they want to know, like, from someone else's point of view, how am I? Am I good? Am I bad? Am I neutral? What am I like? Because like when they look in the mirror, like they know that they're not necessarily like seeing what's there. They're kind of like seeing all these like filters through their story.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you get someone else to kind of like point out your achievements, and you go like I said, like if you're watching, like however, what if you've done in life, you can probably give yourself like a little bit more credit for like the achievements that you've done, or that perhaps like like you've fallen off the horse because things were tough, like especially the last couple of years with the whole planet. Like everybody keeps saying things like doing okay is the new awesome. That's a really weird and so it's like, get back on the horse, because like you've achieved so many things in the past, you can brush them off and put them back up on your webpage now. Like now's the time to do it. While everybody else is kind of like slowly kind of like looking left and right to see, like, is it safe to come out? Like now is the time to get ahead of that.
100%. Act fast. Taking fast action, that's business. That's part of building business acumen as well. Doing it quickly. That's
because
really
I suppose like anybody can overthink something to the point of paralysis, or that analysis paralysis. I've always liked, I don't know if you've seen like Roadrunner with Coyote.
Of course.
So like where Coyote can walk off the cliff and he can keep walking, and I don't know what he's walking on, but it's not cliff anymore, it's just air.
Yes.
And it's until he looks down he can keep walking, but if he looks down then he falls. And sometimes it can be a little bit like that there's things that you need to check on to make sure that you're doing correctly, absolutely, but there's some things that you should not be checking on, which is like the overthinking and the doubts. It was like the one business coach was like saying that one of the principles of success is to move faster than the speed of doubt. So like have a vision in your mind. Like one of the two things that people probably need to do is go faster and slower. So it's kind of like that when they want to manifest more success in their life, go faster, have an idea, execute it. When they're trying to make a decision, or they feel kind of like stressed and sort of eaten up and burnt out, it's like sometimes stop for a second and just let everything sort of catch up in your head. So it's like making that snap decision as to like, should you be acting faster or taking a pause? Just that in itself is like a really great steering wheel for going like, well, how should I be doing this? And if you've taken the right pauses, then generally it's like the time to sort of execute, to get out of the head and into the body and go like, well, I'm going to manifest this thing for myself, but I've also got to do the steps.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I'm not trying to do everything alone, that I am worth getting someone else's help,
Yeah.
or telling people about my goal,
Yeah.
and running at it and saying, well, I'm allowed to achieve this. Instead of like, hiding it, and like in case like their friends or family sees their ad and say like, who do you think you are starting a new business in times like this? And you're like, oh, sorry, I'll go stop it. Does that make you happy? It's like, no, it doesn't make me happy either, because I'm still going to come down hard on you. And so it's kind of like interesting that like being in business, sometimes it's a whole series of your friends and family telling you like, you shouldn't have done that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're against you. They're actually just trying to help.
Yeah.
But that help doesn't always translate into the language that you need at that time. Like I love that there's like that triangle almost like of getting it done, like where there's the vision, and you can either go to the measurer or you can take your vision to a doer. And I would always take it to a doer first, create a really bad version, and then bring that bad version to a measurer, and the measurer will tell me everything that's wrong with it. And then I'll go back to myself as a visionary and think, well, what do I want? Then go back to a doer and execute on the instructions the measurer gave me, and then bring it back and they say, you've only implemented 19 out of the 20 things I told you to implement. Okay, which one am I missing? And they tell you, then you go, okay, great. Back to myself as a visionary, spend some time kind of doing the work, then go to the doer, execute it. And then you come back to the measurer and they're going, yep, it's fine. But the measurer never says like, you're great. They say there's no problems anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like the measurer or the accountant, like their job is not to kind of like say, I'm excited. Like your accountant doesn't say like, this is an exciting business. The accountant says, this is how much you owe the government. And they do a really, really good job at it. And they're not there to kind of depress you. Like they're there to do like a job, absolutely. But it does seem like, some people, or most people, they measure first before like having a go.
Yeah.
Or like when thinking, should I hire someone for help? Like, I don't know, but you may as well. Because like when you do it, like you look back on it, like I've never heard anyone look back and say, 10 years ago, I wish I didn't hire a coach. I've never heard anyone say that. I've heard like somebody say like, I'm offended by a particular coach's values because they turned out to be a jerk. I've heard that, but I've never heard somebody say it was a waste of like, 10 years ago. It was a waste to hire a coach, because it's always like, it taught them something, or it helps them to kind of get out of a funk or out of a stuckness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then having that map forward is absolutely something that people need.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you've said. It's brilliant. It's the power of who you choose to surround yourself with, and being strategic about the connections that you make in terms of, not just building connections for the sake of strategy, but if you know that you've got a good group of people who are feeding good mindsets to you, and this is a really good group for connecting with other people who are on similar levels to you, in terms of they're running their own business, they're in the same industry as you. You can network with the people in this group in order to surround yourself and give your mind examples of success and how you can do it. Hey, I'm really struggling with this. Like, did you ever come across this before? If you ask, do you mind if I ask you something to help me? It's really hard to say no to.
Yeah.
Business coaching is absolutely imperative. Like if I didn't have coaching, I wouldn't be where I was now. As good as you could be at coaching yourself, if you have coaching and mentoring from a business coach who has coached people before and they've gotten results, they've helped people to develop themselves, which in turn develops their business, that's an invaluable asset for your business. And that is 100%. Like, it's not always going to be a return for a return dollar. You can't look at coaching as an ROI unless you're going to like a lead generation coach or a sales coach, right? Because coaching, when you purchase, when you get business coaching, it's a long-term game, and it's an investment in the knowledge that you have as a business owner. You got to look at it as an investment, because you're continuously building on that thing. You can only build a house brick by brick. right? I see all the bricks you got behind you. You can only build that brick by brick. You can't just like manufacture the wall and all the bricks and all the cement in one machine and just go plonk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Because you're getting into like, there's the big picture and the small steps, and everyone's at odds as to like which one to start with. And there's maybe no right answer, but it's like, you start with a small step and you go like, hey, I did that one. That's really great. Where does it go?
Yeah.
And then like you come back to the big picture and you say like, great, now I understand how everything fits together. What should I be doing?
Yes.
And they're both lacking a step, but it's kind of like that. It's like a card pyramid that you've got to put the two together and have this rhythm between the two. And then eventually you can sort of see like the small steps in the big picture together, they actually lean against each other to the point like where you can then sort of eventually back off and watch them grow themselves. Like that's the magic that seems to happen, because when people are only looking for a practical step or they're only looking for the big picture, they would always fail because like they're only looking for 50% of it. But the brain can really only kind of dive into one or the other per moment. So it's like, this is going to take you more than one moment to get.
That's right.
Like, it's going to be a little bit weird because like, coaching, like when you buy it, it's like that you're getting into something when you're going, huh, what is this? And like, you're discovering it. You're unpacking like, all right, what is this journey? And then you can connect the dots looking back and going, okay, well, they helped me, like it's like with the DNA, like they helped me know, where I want to be, what the steps are. And then eventually like, it's like the action, like the, when to schedule those steps. Yeah. But beyond that, it's also like this underlying philosophy that like they change as a person. They become someone who can kind of actually have belief in themselves to say like, if I want something, I expect to get it. It's like that when you're cooking, like I expect that the food I cook is going to turn out really well. Because like if somebody comes in and expects the food to turn out terribly, it will. If they go in and expect it to turn out really great, it might on time 2 or 3.
That's it. Yeah.
But it's really kind of getting back on that horse, especially like if someone's been knocked off. There's no kind of triggers around us to tell us to get back onto the horse again. Like the same as like in a casino, like where they there's no windows or clocks. They want people like to stay there drinking, feeding $50 notes into those machines without any clue as to like what the time is. Like, is it 2 PM or 3 AM? It's like, who would know? Because the environment's like set to kind of not tell people. And that's kind of like what people's lives are, that like when they've kind of fallen off a horse, it's like being stuck in that casino, like with no indication to say like, hey, it's time to get back onto the horse again. It's time to kind of like take back control of your vision and go and build something. Go and have some fun with what you want to create in your life. And it could be like the business of your dreams.
Yeah. And that's either self-initiated or if you reach out to your coach and be like, I think I effed up, I don't know what to do now. A good coach should be able to respond to that and say, I get messages like that all the time from my clients. They're like, look, I got a lead call in about half an hour. What should I say? Just remember the process that we went through. Let's think about what the client actually wants. What's been the connection before? Do they trust you? Okay, you might want to mention a couple of things about previous case studies you've got in there while you're at it. You got this, you're all good. Just go in there calm, have a couple of breaths and just give them a call. And they're like, oh yeah, cool.
Absolutely. And a good coach is used to those calls. Absolutely. Like I remember one time, like I was one of the first times like selling a $5,000 coaching program that I had for marketing. And because I'd never done it before, and it was a really good program, it was like put together in a way that like helped me achieve my previous success. And 10 minutes before the call, I just like get a message from them that says, I'm sorry, I'm busy, I can't talk to you. And then I called my coach and I'm going, I don't think this whole thing's working out. I think like we just need to pull the plug all together. Everything's broken, everything's stuffed. I'm going to go make worms. So it was kind of like one of those. And it's kind of funny. It's like, he's so used to those calls. He's like, step 1, don't react. I'm like, what should I message her? He's like, stop, don't react. I'm like, but what does that mean? He's like, well, for starters, your call was scheduled for 10 minutes. Don't message her. Don't call her for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so then eventually, like, when the 10 minutes had passed, because like he'd sort of calmed me down and got me focused back on the steps, I called her and I made the sale because it turned out to be exactly what she needed. She was just kind of like a little bit nervous going in, but then it worked out really well and she got some great results. But it's like, I was nervous in advance, like by going, something didn't go according to plan. What do I do? And he's gone, don't react.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is that supposed to work? And he's like, yeah, you'll see. Once you get into the rhythm of it, I'm like, are you magic or what?
That's right. That's the window, right? That's the window.
Yeah.
That's your little, that's your time clock in the middle of your casino thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all he did was like, calm me down and sort of get me back onto the steps that we've already gone through.
That's right. It takes someone outside of you, if not self-initiated. Self-initiated can be difficult, but that's why it's really good to surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with the right people who are talking about, this is what I've done in my business, or this is what I'm learning through, this is what I'm progressing with. Your brain is getting fed that, and you will start to think that way. So if you're talking to people, if your top 5 people are like, I mean, you probably already know this, Scott, you've done a lot of personal development yourself. Your top 5 people are, oh, this doesn't work out. Oh, that sucks. I had a shit weekend. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're always going to be thinking about the bad things that are in front of you and how crap they are. And then you're going to be telling all your friends about how crap they are. And that's not going to be helpful. So when you go into those stages where I don't know what to do, your brain hasn't got any tools. It needs to be hearing good stuff in there so that you can talk yourself out of stuff like that, so that you can be self-initiated. And you still will need coach, like, your coaches to help you in other instances. But, we got to be really purposeful and stand guard in our minds. Like, what are we feeding that stuff?
100%, like the sensory diet. It's like when they say that you are the, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around. It's like if there's like you, Tony Robbins, Gillian Anderson, Christopher Lloyd, like people that are on the wavelength of, they expect to win, and they just like see from the energy they win. Yeah,
that's it. And I know that you run your own practice, Scott. Like, if you've got a receptionist there, she might be one of your top 5s. If you're seeing her every day, what's she saying? Or he. If you've got flatmates or housemates, or you've got a partner, like, what are they like? It's not just about the people that you're reaching out to who are in business. It's also the people that you literally have contact with every day. I try to reduce how much I talk to my mom. Like, I love her to bits. She's amazing. But, like, there's things, she's very dramatic. Oh, don't do that. Yeah. Are you going to do that? I'm like, yeah, Ma. Like, I'm cool as a cucumber. I don't really want dramatic stuff going in my head, because I'm going to be freaking out every time I want to do something scary. I want to be calm when I'm doing something scary, right?
Like, I'm the same. I don't talk to my parents about work.
Yeah.
It came to my graduation, and I'm grateful for that. That was great.
Yeah.
But they don't need to read every book I write or watch every video that I make. It's not their job.
Yeah.
They'd rather be grandparents.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
100%. It's like that your family, you can have dinner with them, you can be family with them, but they don't necessarily need to be your business coaches. And you can choose how often, like, you spend time around them. They might be like really great people, but still, like, perhaps like if they're having like a really bad day and you're doing like sales calls, it might be a good idea, like, see them tomorrow instead.
Yeah.
Don't cut them out necessarily for that reason.
Yes. Yes.
Like, sometimes people are too quick to pull that trigger. Sometimes they have to for safety, and if that's a thing, absolutely. But it's more about kind of like, it's really finding that, I suppose, that intelligent balance is to like, well, if you're not paying your family to be your business coaches, it's not their job.
Yeah.
But then also, like, sometimes like their life psychologies, like if they're all about drama, sometimes that can be like really tricky as well. Because you'd be like, I solve problems fast. I think like, what do I want to eat? And then I cook it and I'm done. Or what do I want to buy? I buy it and I'm done. Like, what do I want to build? I build it and I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without all like the authorization steps in between.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I love that. And we're not always we're not always conscious of who's having what influence, like, just because I'm not talking about my business to my mum, it doesn't mean that her energetic imprint, let's just call it, is not going into my brain anyway. She might be talking about, like, I recently started swimming in the ocean. She thinks that's really freaky and scary. She's like, oh my God, swimming in the ocean. Oh, it's cold. Aren't you going to get cold? I'm like, no. Because the brain models it across different, it's a way of thinking. It's not just associated and referencing it to the business or to ocean swimming or to using a knife to cut a tomato.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly. It's like, the ocean might be a little bit colder, might get a little bit blue, but it's good for the skin, good for inflammation, good for exercise.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the one exercise that you can sweat and it doesn't matter.
That's right. That's right. So, how do you know it's not just a big pool of sweat?
How much of it is?
It's the best cover. So anyway, I didn't really expect that we'll be talking mindset, but I know, like, from I've only just recently started a coaching business, and this is something that I've had a lifelong interest in psychology, communication, perception, how we see the world. What are the right questions to ask someone to get on the other side? What you mentioned before about you're being in reactive state, or being like, what do I do that I haven't called, what should I do now? What is the question that's going to have them going from here to here in the most efficient way, where they can really put those two kind of ideas and learnings together to really create that breakthrough, so I mean, like, it's just been a natural thing that I've been doing in the branding process, and I'm like, I'll embrace that. Yeah, sure. I'd love to coach people, as a service. Like, that's, anyway, so there's too many overlapping topics, Scott, for one interview, I think.
Exactly. One of my favorite quotes I heard you say, like, on one of the first videos of yours that I saw, it's, don't brand yourself as the cheap person. I can't remember what the exact sentence was, but it was like, imagine how you would feel knowing that, like, all of your efforts that you've put out there is that you've just, when everybody else talks about you, they go to that person. Why? Are they the best? No, they're just cheap.
Yeah.
And, like, wouldn't you want them to come to you and say, like, I've heard that you're the best at what you do, that you can help me, versus going like, they'll do it at a quarter of the price. I'm like, well, like, I love that dentist analogy of, if someone's like brand new and said, like, that because I've been through like a bit of a family crisis, I've had a breakup and all those things, I'll only charge you 25% to do your teeth. And you're like, no, that's okay, I'll just go pay full price somewhere else.
All right.
Because you want to have absolute faith in the job that they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's more about, do a good job, charge what you're worth.
Yeah.
They'll come if you do the steps, and not just like build it and they'll come, but build it and then advertise and brand in the right way, so that you're taking responsibility for the fact they'll come, and then they'll come.
Correct. Don't get me wrong, there's a way that you can have bad branding. That's usually when people go through like a re-logo and a rehash, new name, if it gets really bad. Doesn't happen very often, but I mean, the other thing is that it could be in your strategy to be the cheapest, in which way you've succeeded, right?
If that's what they wanted to do.
Right. And in your business model, you may have found those prices a good way to work and still remain profitable. And that's a really good thing, because, if you're in an industry where people are charging, if the average price is $8,000 for a program, and you've somehow managed to make it work ongoing for $5,000, and you're known as the cheap one in that industry because everyone else is inflating, that could be a really good thing for you, right? If it still works financially, like, I think, perception is everything.
Exactly.
And,
well, thank you so much for your blueprint, the DNA. That's such great value that, and if people, click on the link for the webpage, or go to, what was it? Irene
IreneEmily.com.
Yeah. .com, yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you're seeing this on Facebook, ask a question in the comment section, and see if Irene can help you.
That's it. Yeah. You can ask a question if anything has come to you. Otherwise, you can just drop a fancy old funny little gif of a dog smiling or something. I really love those. They're my favorite ones. Or just comment me, and I'll reach out to you, and we can have a chat for anything that comes up for you too.
Perfect. And definitely a dog smiling emoji. That's important.
Yeah. dog smiling, or a gif of a dog with his tongue out. It's the best.
Yeah,
the little things.
One of those
Scott.
two.
That's it.
Exactly. That'll earn you extra points.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Scott. I really
Excellent.
appreciate having sharing the stage with people like Christopher Lloyd and yeah, I really appreciate your time and sharing these amazing people with you, and looking forward to our next chat.
Thank you. I'm going to end the recording now.